Welcome back to Stat 7 Sports. I'm the Contained Kunas, and as we went through all the kind of projections and all the previews of the 2020 Saints season, and all the players that got brought to the NFL, all the 20 players that LSU had drafted and were undrafted, let's go back to the colleges and go to see what's coming next. Because everyone's going to be really concerned. Everyone feels really concerned with so many people that we've lost last year. Let me come to tell y'all that hope is definitely not lost for this season. It's not... You can't really expect to be just a one-year wonder. But there is something to look forward to in college football once it does come back. And here we preview the 2020 LSU football season. As looking at the whole schedule, you have Texas San Antonio, Texas in a home back in Baton Rouge for this one. Rice and Nichols as two rental wins on that. And then we get South Carolina instead of having Georgia, with Florida as our other East common opponent. So going on to the offense, where everyone's concerned that, oh, Burrow's gone, Jefferson's gone, and all the others are gone. What should we look forward to next? Well, everyone's... Just for what we have left, yes, it's concerning that we have 3 returning starters, we have 7 former stars that we played at different times. They got drafted in this first round, all the way from Burrow down to Stephon Sullivan with the 5th last pick. And then we had 4 other starters and offensive players at times that were undrafted free agents that are on training camp rosters. Now we go on to the quarterback, the main quarterback that's expected to replace Joe Burrow. Everyone's kind of expecting it. It's just kind of a matter of time once the offseason training camps end up coming up. We all expect that the quarterback's going to be Myles Brennan. Now, he had his limited time in snaps last year, basically in garbage time, 60% completion percentage, 353 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Behind him, there is absolutely no experience. Max Johnson and TJ Finley are 2 4-star recruits that are true freshmen that are more likely to be fighting for the backup job, as both were supposed to be coming in for spring workouts and for all the spring training, spring football work. And they're going to have a leg up on the returning third stringer Peter Parrish, as he got suspended indefinitely for violating team rules. So you have the son of Brad Johnson and then you have TJ Finley trying to battle for that backup job. Johnson's more of a pocket passer. TJ has a little bit more mobility. But a lot of what this offense is going to be reliant on Myles Brennan, and it feels like we're asking that every year. Do they have a quarterback that can be consistent enough? No one's expecting to be Joe Burrow level. That part's going to be an anomaly probably for at least this year, hopefully not too long, but you can't really give Brennan that high of expectations, because if that's the case, he's trying to reach one of, if not the greatest offensive season in the history of college football. And that's, as a first-year star, you really can't expect that. Then we go on to running backs, where even though you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire that was drafted late in the first round, the last pick, 32nd overall, to Kansas City, LSU did have a trio of running backs that got consistent experience from Chris Curry, who definitely went off, will probably be likely to be the incoming star to begin the season. It's not likely that you'll see that at the very end, but he went off against Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl, in the playoff semifinal. And then you had 2 very high recruits from this past year, 5-star John Emery and 4-star Tyrion Davis-Price. Now, both of them definitely showed flashes of it, but as Edwards-Helaire has played the majority of snaps, none of them really be able to kind of set themselves apart to clearly say, oh, this is going to be the guy that's going to take over for the 2020-2021 season. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be John Emery, but it's a trio of running backs that they have, so there's a lot of potential there. Then we go to receivers. Even though we even though he lost the top receiver in catches last year and the second most touchdowns in receiving last season, we return the Blitnikoff winner in Jamar Chase with the most touchdowns in the country last year, the only person who bested Justin Jefferson. He had more yards and more touchdowns than Jefferson, over 21 yards a catch, which is absurd. And you know what? He gets to bring in his recruiting partner in Terrace Marshall. Marshall was injured different parts of the last year. So his stats are kind of on the lower side for someone of his skill set, but he's going to be able to be a solid number 2. We know what we should expect from both of them. I don't know if Chase is going to have those stats again because that's utterly absurd, but Marshall should get improved stats. Now to replace Jefferson, Marshall's going to be the number 2 to replace Jefferson, but as a number 3, you're going to expect to see a lot of 3, 4, 5 receiver outlooks for the fact that they just have so many receiving options, and that's still going to be the case for this following season. As you have Racing McMath, who is a kind of a key 4th guy in the offense last year, 17 catches, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's one that Burrow had constantly hyped up in the offseason from 2019, saying that he's going to be a guy that is going to be involved in the offense. And while he wasn't as big as the top 3, he could end up proving to be a bigger factor this coming season. Also, in that fact, you have Trey Palmer, who a lot of people are thinking he's the front runner to be that 3rd receiver, but really didn't get that involved with the offense outside of 1 reception and a stretch play. Same thing goes for Devontae Lee, 4-star, and also a 5-star, depending on which recruiting market you go on. And then you have another 5-star coming in Kayshon Boutte, where he'll be battling for that 3rd receiver spot as well. So there is a lot of talent on this side. And then the only thing is that you are going to have a bit of issue trying to replace 2 tight ends between Stephon Sullivan and Thaddeus Moss. Now they did get Eric Gilbert, 5-star, the 5-star recruit that was the highest rated tight end recruit in the history of tight end, in the history of 247 Sports. So he's going to be one that people are going to expect to be a strong receiving and blocking option, but they also bring back Jamal Pettigrew, and they bring Cole Taylor as another option with a similar skill set as Gilbert, just probably going to need a little bit more time to develop. Now, the biggest issue that everyone's kind of wondering is the offensive line, because you really only have one true returning starter, and that's Austin Deculus at the right tackle position. But there is pretty much every other position is bringing back someone who has some line experience. Starting off with the left tackle, you had Sadiq Charles suspended for 6 games this season, so Dare Rosenthal kind of took his place during that part of the time, whenever they didn't use Badara Traore. So he has experience there. Then you have left guard, which is likely going to be Ed Ingram, and he's going to replace Adrian McGee. Then at center, they just got a transfer in from Harvard, grad transfer, two-time best rated interior lineman award. So he's expected to go in and be the starter at center. So that does end up filling the hole as Liam Shanahan just announced that he's coming to LSU as a grad transfer. So that would have been the biggest hole, trying to replace Lloyd Cushenberry. So you have someone, he may not have SEC experience, but he does have 3 years starting experience at Harvard. Then going to right guard, probably the one with the least experience out of this, with Chasen Hines more than likely going to be the starter there. Now, he is going to have a battle between him, between 4-star sophomore Anthony Bradford, who has been considered to be his biggest competition there, and 5-star guard tackle recruit Cardell Thomas, who was injured last year, thought to be a pivotal key to the offensive line last year, but the injury slowed it, and now he's going to be trying to fight back in for playing time. Then with that, going on to the defense. And LSU decides, as they lose so many of their key players on defense, they lose their defensive coordinator, Dave Aranda. He goes to Baylor to replace Matt Rule, who went to Carolina to be the head coach over there, with former offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Well, offensive quarterbacks coach Joe Brady, and the assistant for Steve Ensminger. And also for the fact they end up bringing, Scott Linehan to be a quarterback assistant to help Steve Ensminger. And he's one that's had some NFL experience with the Rams, amongst others. But back on the defense, they bring Bo Pelini, former defensive coordinator, back onto the team to end up helping this defense that is returning 5 starters, which is the high point of it. But you do have 6 players that were drafted on defense from Chassaw, Queen, Delpit, Fulton, Phillips, Jacob Phillips, and Rashard Lawrence, and 2 more undrafted with Braden Fajoko and Michael Divinity. And then add Blake Ferguson on it, you get the full 20 that were drafted and undrafted from this roster. So starting off with defensive line, which is expected to be kind of between that and linebackers is going to be the big issue for defense. But really on defense, they return most of the players that have at least a starting presence as a starting front 4 as they go into a 4-3 defense. Starting off with Glenn Logan, and Tyler Shelvin, Siaki Apu Ika, and Neil Farrell with their starting D-line. So they have a full starting 4 on the defensive line that have a significant amount of experience. So really, the starting point of the D-line is perfectly fine for what LSU is going to need for the 2020 season. It's the main issue on it is going to be the full depth off of it after those front 4, because you really have the only ones that you have that have any experience whatsoever. You have a couple games that Trevez Moore played, which he's been an outside linebacker, mostly a pass rusher. He's going to need to be definitely a bit more of a factor in his senior season. Jarrell Cherry really didn't get much playing time. Justin Thomas, they had a package for him to where he could be that starting nose tackle whenever they went in one of those oddball defenses that Aranda decided to run, and he would be the guy in the middle. But he had the potential going into the transfer portal, and end up deciding to come back. So he should be able to run more in this defense after the mass exodus on the defensive line for him, as they lost Fajoko and Lawrence and Chassaw in the outside linebacker pass rusher position. And then you have the recruits coming in between Jaquan Roy at defensive end and Jacobian Guillory at D tackle, as both of them very highly recruited four-star recruits on the D-line, and depending on which recruiting site you go, they do put them as 5-star recruits. They were the top 2 guys on defense as recruits from Louisiana. So that should help with the depth on the line, and they should be able to get a significant amount of playing time, especially in some of those lackluster kind of games like Texas San Antonio and Rice and Nichols. Then we go to the linebackers, where really most of the experiences end up leaving this year because they lost Michael Divinity, they lost Jacob Phillips, they lost first-round pick Patrick Queen. If you end up counting Chassaw as a linebacker, they lost two first-round linebackers to the NFL. They lost a third one that was a third-round pick to the Browns, and really 4 linebackers that were drafted that are going to be in training camps because Divinity was an undrafted free agent picked up by the Giants. But really what you get left over is mainly Damone Clark and Micah Baskerville with experience. But they were able to get the top FCS transfer with Jabril Cox from North Dakota State. So He's been a two-time All-FCS player with a lot of experience, especially in the FCS playoffs. So he's going to be one that should be a plug-in starter once he gets on campus. And then we also use Marcel Brooks kind of as a mixed package to be kind of a safety rusher, or we put him back in coverage as a nickelback. So he had different roles in a limited amount of playing time as a true freshman. Expect that role to expand. We don't know if it's going to be in the secondary, if it's going to be more in the box, because with being a 4-3 defense, it's going to be definitely different from last year. Now, everything on reserve, you have the senior experience from people who may not have had too much playing time, but you had Ray Thornton, Andre Anthony, both of them redshirt seniors. They've both been on the field trying to be that opposite pass rusher from Caleb Von Chassoff for the past couple years. And they also have numerous linebackers coming in. They're all four-star recruits between B.J. Ojolari, Philip Webb, and Josh White, amongst a couple others. So they have a bunch of youth to end up filling out that depth chart and making it to where their linebacker may struggle early on depth, but should have enough experience by the end to where they should be a solid bunch at the very end. And LSU has been having a knack to be able to get junior or senior just come up for a 1-year span, essentially. Like you have LSU to be kind of a linebacker university of late, because of the fact that they have a lot of people who have really 1 year of full starter experience that become a significantly higher pick because of just that 1 year experience. If you go back after you had Caleb Beckwith, you had Duke Riley, you had Kevin Minter, you had Devin White, who, yes, he bursted onto the scene in his sophomore year, but really became a top 10 pick in his junior season. Then Patrick Queen and Jacob Phillips kind of burst onto the scene this year. Queen became his first round pick. Phillips was a 2-year starter, but still became a relatively high pick with a 3rd round pick. So I would end up expecting kind of the same way for potentially Damone Clark and Jabril Cox, as Clark definitely burst onto the scene last year, became a significant factor as that third linebacker besides Phillips and Queen. And I would kind of expect the same way for Cox, definitely be a higher pick than what people would have expected coming out of North Dakota State. Now for the secondary, where yes, LSU lost Fulton, yes, LSU lost Grant Delpit. It's not going to matter. They have so much depth on their team in the secondary. They're called DBU for a reason. Derek Stingley coming back for his sophomore year out of probably one of the most prolific freshman seasons for a cornerback in college football history, especially LSU history. Like, you had Jalen Mills, you had Patrick Peterson. They played at times as a freshman. They didn't have stats near this. And both of them were very high picks and are still in the NFL, amongst others in the secondary from former LSU teams. Then Kerry Vincent decided to come back as probably the starting nickelback for the season. And Cardell Flott played a significant amount of time whenever Fulton was down or whenever Stingley was hurt for a tiny period of time. But you should expect Stingley and Flott to be the starting cornerbacks on the outside. Kerry Vincent to be a starting corner at nickel. And then you have other cornerbacks from Jay Ward and Raydarius Jones, where both of them really didn't have time to go on the field, but they were both 4-star recruits, sophomores. So in the same class as Flott and Stingley, they really built up depth whenever they had the mass exodus in the 2018-2019 season, and they get two highly recruited cornerbacks with 5-star Elias Ricks, the top cornerback in the country, and Dwight McGlothern, another 4-star recruit. They loaded up on 5 and 4 stars in this draft, in this recruiting class. Yes, they were fourth in the country in recruiting, but this class was loaded. So their secondary, especially their corners, is going to be impressive. Not saying that safeties are going to be an issue either, though, because for the fact they're bringing back both their original starting safeties last year. Jacoby Stevens kind of surprised people by deciding to come back for his senior season, since he just lit up the stat sheet on defense. 92 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 5 pass deflections. And him, like Marcel Brooks, was kind of used in a, if y'all remember Mark Barron at Alabama, whenever he was drafted by the Rams in the first round, they used him as a safety and a linebacker position. We ended up going inside the box and play as kind of an 8th man in the box. So Stevens, just like Mark Barron, who was a top 10 pick, is going to be someone who's very versatile. So you could have another safety from the youth, or you could have Kerry Vincent work as a safety to definitely help out this defense. So there is a large plethora on this secondary that will be able to get significant playing time and have a strong amount of experience to really make it difficult for receivers and quarterbacks for 2020-2021. And then you get Todd Harris, who was injured in the Northwestern State game last year, kind of ended up breaking down that defense, like LSU's defense, for a few weeks, really until that Ole Miss game between like the Vandy game and the Vandy game and the Ole Miss game. There were a bunch of coverage lapses, despite the skill on the field, where you wouldn't have thought that this talented of a roster was going to struggle at times. But with Harris coming back, he's going to be kind of that heart and soul that everyone in the facility wants to do well. Everyone in the secondary class wants Todd Harris to do well. And he should be that starting free safety coming back from injury as long as he comes back healthy. Now going into reserve, you still have Maurice Hampton, who kind of did work as a nickelback as well, kind of as a slot corner. So he's gotten experience from multiple positions that they've tried to use on him. He's worked kind of in the same way as they used Marcel Brooks. Then you have Eric Monroe, Cameron Lewis, Monroe was a former 4-star guy, hasn't really gotten too much playing time, but has been kind of shackled by injuries for the past couple years. And you have Cameron Lewis, who has kind of been used as a cornerback safety whenever some of the others, as Todd Harris was injured, as Maurice Hampton wasn't available. Whenever you had some of the back end of the secondary get hurt, he was kind of the first one they put in as a replacement. And then they bring another 4-star safety in Jordan Tolles to just bring another name to the floor on the safeties. So there is so many people, so many roles that they could put for this LSU secondary. It's kind of ridiculous. And it does show that Ed Orgeron and Corey Raymond and Bill Bush, the safeties coach for LSU, they know what they want to recruit, what type of position they want, and it's definitely shown onto the field. But I hope everyone wants to look forward to next year's season. As soon as we get the full results that college football is back and everyone can start training again, we'll look forward to how they would end up being, like with training camp, what sort of position battles should you expect, and get a full preview on the schedule up ahead and the full season. But with that all being said, thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, share it out to other people. 5 videos in 5 days. I haven't done that one before, but between the NFL draft and LSU's content, LSU football after it, it's been a little bit of effort, but yeah, this actually took some time, but yeah, I don't mind it. So yeah, thank y'all for watching. I'm Contained Kunas. This is Stat7 Sports. Thank y'all for watching. See y'all next time, and stay safe.